Yes, hello, I am Sungchul Choi. In this session, how are we going to study machine learning? To be precise, it might be easier to think about what content, and how we will learn the what and how. I would like to talk a bit about what content we will learn and how we will learn it. It's not such a difficult topic. Generally, when we think about the machine learning process, it goes like this. We take existing data. By applying some machine learning algorithm, a model is produced. This model is something we've been talking about since last time, but you might not know exactly what it is. After creating this model, when you input some new data into it, it can determine something about the data, usually like this. Looking at this data, it determines which category it belongs to. For example, looking at this data, it might determine that this student belongs to the middle school category, or it might determine that they belong to the high school category, or that they belong to a certain cluster or group. For example, a member of parliament belonging to the ruling party, you provide data related to the member of parliament, and it determines that this data belongs to a member of the ruling party, or it determines that they belong to the opposition party. It might do things like this, or make predictions about certain figures, predicting figures, and so on. We will discuss these topics in more detail next time. Anyway, using existing data, you create something called a model with an algorithm, and putting new data into this model to make predictions is what we call machine learning. To give a bit of an example, this is something that happened recently. Recently, the movie Okja couldn't be shown in multiplexes. And I understand it was shown in a few theaters. But it's only being streamed on Netflix, so you might be curious. How many people would have watched it if it had been properly screened? That's something people were curious about, so they tried to predict it. This prediction was made in an article by a site called Platum, and there's a site called Watcha. Watcha is a movie review site. You can think of it as a site where people rate movies based on how much they enjoyed them. It's a site where people write movie reviews, and here, people have marked movies they want to watch. So, this is the existing data here. The existing data includes numbers like 85,550,000 and 87,590,000, and using this existing data, they compared it with actual data. After comparing, the journalist found that there is a certain correlation between this data and the actual number of movie theater attendees. It seems there is a correlation, and it increases proportionally. So, here's with 12,800 people saying they like it and want to see it, predicting this correlation suggests that about 7,270,000 people might watch it. That's what I thought. Among the very simple data mining techniques, in machine learning, since I belong to the generation that used to do data mining, I had to learn the subject of data mining. So I keep using the term data mining, but it's one of the methods in machine learning. Now, I'm going to briefly explain how this happened in this session. If we go back to the picture we saw earlier, it would be good for you to understand two things. One is the concept of an algorithm, and the other is a model, algorithm and model. So let me talk a bit about that, as I mentioned earlier. The reporter seems to think that there would be a certain level of correlation when looking at this correlation, but it seems they thought that this correlation could be predicted in a straight line. Predicting in a straight line. It's a straight line. This was predicted to be possible in the form of a straight line by inputting the value I want to watch on Watcha. Then let's think back to math from high school or middle school. What is the equation of a straight line? The equation of a straight line is y equals x plus b, which we already know as the equation of a straight line. So now we should be able to find out what values go into x and what values go into y. What is the value of x? That's right. Here, x is the number of times want to see was clicked, and y is the total number of viewers who actually went to the theater. For example, in the case of The Martian, the value of y, which is 4,870,000, is obtained by multiplying 8,759 by a and adding b. This is how we can talk about it. This is to a hypothesis. We don't know exactly the relationship between the want to see clicks on Watcha and the total number of viewers, But we hypothesized that we could represent the correlation with a linear equation here, and that's how we created this. So now, what do we need to know? That's right. We need to know A and B to complete this equation. Going back, this y equals x plus b. We will call this a model from now on. Model. And the process of finding A and B, we will call an algorithm. Let me summarize for you. A model is a mathematical formula for making predictions. Or, well, a mathematical formula is obviously a function. We talked about the equation x plus b earlier, which is y, but it can also be expressed as a function t f of x, where y is the output when a certain value is input into x. This model, I think it's a bit wrong to say that machine learning is actually expressed in terms of linear equations, probability distributions, differentiation, and differential equations. Anyway, it can be expressed with things like linear equations or probability distributions. There are indeed some that are not expressed, and not in most cases. Machine learning models are in a form that can be expressed with such formulas. Of course, it can all be expressed in a somewhat complex form. To create this model, we can input and find the y values and x values. But we don't know the a values and b values. They are unknowns. We call these parameters. And the process of finding such parameters is necessary. The process of finding these parameters is necessary, and we call the process of finding them an algorithm. The original meaning of an algorithm is a process to solve a problem. People often talk about it like that. Like the exam algorithm is like this. So you study for the exam. A few days left, like 3 days left you play, 2 days left you play. 1 day left you play. It's the day of the exam you fail. You've probably seen such algorithms sometimes in comics or on the internet. It's a process to solve a certain problem, and what we need to do is create this model through machine learning. In this model, the process of finding the unknown variables we don't know is called a machine learning algorithm in machine learning. So we have the algorithm that finds the equations and the unknown variables in these equations. These two aspects are what we mainly study in machine learning. Let's go back a little. As I mentioned earlier, there are these formulas, these equations. So with these equations, there is an equation of a straight line. To complete this equation of a straight line, the values of x initially are 8, 2, 1, 7, 5, 9. We will actually try this later. 4,887,000. Then 612. And then 1,013,100,000. Then 12,078. This doesn't need to be included because this is the expected value. Then 8,660,000. Then 160,000. 430. Next, 10,300,000. Now, when this value of x is input, indeed, it's 3 million people. Yes, you can think of it as learning the process of determining what the predicted value of y will be. As mentioned earlier, using existing data, we find the values of a and b through this algorithm. For example, let's say a is not exactly this, but let's assume it's 5, and this is 2.7. So this model is created as y equals 5x plus 2.7. Then, what is the new data? Here, you have clicked on want to watch for Okja, right? This will be entered as the value of x, right? So, if you press 12,008, well, actually, this won't match. However, this is how the predicted value will come out. In other words, machine learning is about establishing this model as a hypothesis, hypothesizing that it will be able to explain this. After setting it as a hypothesis, you apply an algorithm to find the unknown parameters. And this is the process of completing the model. Since I'm explaining it, using high school math concepts, it shouldn't be too difficult. However, this equation is a very simple one, and is one of the regression equations you will first learn. I will explain more about it later. 1, 2. So far, I've briefly explained what machine learning is and what you will learn. Even though the content isn't very difficult, it might still be a bit confusing. But the important thing is that a model is a mathematical formula, and an algorithm is the process of completing that mathematical formula. Ultimately, machine learning is about assuming a mathematical formula and when looking at a problem or data, hypothesizing that this mathematical formula might be appropriate. In that mathematical formula, there are unknown variables that we don't know well. Values like A and B, which I mentioned earlier, are determined through machine learning algorithms, and there are indeed many different types of algorithms. You can see it as a process of finding these through algorithms. Well, that was a bit lengthy up to this point. I believe you have understood it sufficiently. I will see you again next time. Thank you.